Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me, as always, on these Monday excursions into the world of baseball and beyond, Ross Grimsley. How you doing, left-hander?
Wonderful, buddy. What's happening?
I'm doing fine. We're excited to have an old friend of both of ours,
Yeah.
Jerry Coleman. We're going to talk to him in about 45 seconds, find out what's next in the career and life of Mr. Jerry Coleman, one of Baltimore's leading sports talkers, in just a minute. But first, I got to talk to you about the Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. And you all know I read the same spiel every time. Costas Inn, one of the preeminent places for your steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and any of the specials they have Monday through Thursday or anything, anytime. You got a really diverse menu, great stuff. They know that a lot of people during the pandemic are still not comfortable going in and sitting in a restaurant with a lot of people around. So they've made it very easy for you by stepping up their curbside game. Go to costasin.com. That's their website. You can order your food online. You can pay for your food online. And then when you pick it up, you don't even have to get out of your car. And everything, I promise, is packed immaculately. This is not one of the places that you get home and the crab soup is all over your steak or something like that. The Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. Jerry's laughing because I know that's happened to him.
Yeah,
before.
I don't like that.
Yeah, he doesn't like that at all.
It doesn't happen.
It didn't happen
I
at the
appreciate
Costas.
that.
It didn't happen at the Costas Inn, though, did it, Jerry?
Never.
Never.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't happen there, but I have had that occur, and it does ruin.
It ruins everything.
But a good crab soup.
Yeah. Anyway, the Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Phone number 410-477-1975. As mentioned before, our guest today is a mutual friend of both Ross's and mine, and he's been in Baltimore. God, Jerry, I was thinking back to when I was the first guy in Baltimore that gave you your first big break. That's 1989. That's like
Correct.
33 years ago.
That's about right. Yeah. I think I had I was just finishing up at Ithaca College. I don't think I had finished because I graduated in 90. So 89 sounds about right.
Yep.
Had a brief stint, not because of you, because of some guy who owned a restaurant that we're not going to. Well, they're not even around.
They're not even around anymore. The Suburban House.
Yeah, God rest their souls. I mean, they really had some tremendous soup, but what a waste of time that was with that guy. Having to talk sports with him for 3 hours and coming away with a big zilch.
Yep. That's the business I've been in for 40 years. Jerry, everybody that's watching this now knows you're no longer right for the time being at 105.7 The Fan. That has a way of turning around a lot of different ways. Do you have any idea what your next chapter holds for you before we start talking some sport?
I have some ideas. Some things I think are going to come to fruition. They're in the works right now. Don't want to jinx anything, so I'll wait to see how things play out. I suspect I'll have some sort of an announcement by the end of the month. I've been telling a lot of people that have been asking, and I'm happy, and thankful they still ask.
Yeah.
But sometimes towards the end of the month. But yeah, it's been interesting because I haven't been away from sports talk radio for this extended period of a time in about 30 years. So it is kind of weird. And on purpose, I'm taking some time to relax because I have rushed back into jobs each and every time. And, I look back on it, I'm like, take a little time and think about it and relax and enjoy your age.
The fact that you're taking some time off the air, does that mean, for example, like yesterday, did you watch the Ravens game and the Orioles game?
I watched the Ravens game. The Orioles game, I was distracted because of the Ravens game. Nowhere on the radio could I find it, which is becoming a problem.
That's a very interesting issue. When the Ravens play on Sundays, there's no radio of the Oriole game.
There is on something called HD2, which I'm sure Ross can do a whole segment about because he knows where that is on his radio, like everyone else does.
Yeah.
It's like the second or third time now they even interrupted a preseason game, and I did not get to hear the Orioles, who are still in contention, playing baseball on the radio despite having several outlets.
All right, so you did pay attention to the Ravens game.
I did, and I have been paying attention to the Orioles. Obviously, they're exceeding expectations, while the Ravens, that was as big a loss in terms of morale as I have seen this team suffer in quite some time.
Except the one thing is, if you win the following week, if you're good enough to come back and win, nobody really remembers that until later in the year when you play Miami again in the playoffs or something. Nobody
Or
remembers.
if you fall one game short of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we will. I think our division is so winnable that I don't think this one loss is going to really end up amounting to a hill of beans. But we'll see. Ross, you got a couple questions for Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, of course I do. Hey, did you see the Oriole game the other night on Apple TV?
It's interesting you mentioned that, Ross, because at first, I, like every other neophyte out there, was wondering how am I going to maneuver and watch this game without having to pay for Apple TV, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I got it down, I'll tell you.
Because I'm thinking, am I going to really sign up for Apple TV for one Friday night baseball game?
Right.
Maybe. And then I'll cancel in 2 weeks. But I did find a way where you could watch it for free. After a few, reading a few things here or there, I realized I could watch it for free. The broadcast, I just think the whole Apple presentation, to be honest, has left a lot to be desired in terms of the graphics, in terms of what they bring to the broadcast and everything.
I didn't even listen to it. I turned it down.
Do you find that the screen it goes from being very clear to hazy? It goes.
Yes.
Yes.
I tell you,
I found the Amazon product a lot better on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I thought the clarity of it was amazing when I first turned it on.
And did it stay that way, Ross?
I watched a lot of the game, and I thought it was great. I mean, in the the background sometimes was hazy, but overall I thought it was really. I couldn't believe the clarity of it.
I had a tremendous problem early in the game. The first inning and a half or two, it was very hazy, and then it cleared off.
Right.
I think it really depends, guys, on the device that you are using too.
Right.
I was trying to use a phone at the time, which isn't as good as a computer or iPad.
Probably if you have an Apple TV, it probably works very
That would
clear.
even be the best, but then I would have to subscribe, as you know. And
maybe that's the reason
enough money every month.
Maybe that's the reason I got a good picture, but that was it was interesting to say the least. Hey, Jared, go ahead, Ross.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously you're watching the O's. Give us a little rundown on them this year. I know there's 17 games left. They're 4 out of the wild card. They're playing. They played Detroit 3 games, and that's after that they got Houston, Boston, New York, and Toronto. What do you kind of look at? What do you think their chances are securing a playoff spot? I know it's a long ways, but you've watched them. Just give us an overall view of what you've seen this year from this team.
Well, first of all, Ross, hard to believe you just mentioned it. There's less than 20 games to go in this season. It has flown by. It's been a very exciting season. It's been unanticipated. I don't even know if that's a real word, but if it is, that's the word I'm going to go with, because I never saw this train coming. I thought this team was going to lose 100 games. I thought the rebuild would continue. You look at the names and the pitching rotation. They lose their best pitcher. Their top prospect goes down in spring training. And you think, oh, my God, here we go again. They're destined for last place, and they're not going to finish in last place. So thank you, Boston. They're going to win, obviously, more games than anyone anticipated. I think they already hit their number in Vegas with their last victory. So you're right. It's going to be a tough way, though, to end the season with some of the teams that they have to play after they get through the Tigers. And I'm really wondering about a couple of things. One being the pitching. Is it going to hold up? Because, again, they have used these guys out of the bullpen a lot this year. And I don't know how much of an innings count some of these guys are on or aren't on. And we have seen some great things, but obviously the future is on the field right now. Some of it, like Grayson Rodriguez, still at the minor league level, but we're getting to see a lot of these prospects shine. I didn't think they would all come up the way they have this year, frankly. I thought the Orioles might hold these guys back. I'm glad they haven't, because they've given Oriole fans a glimpse into the future. But though I wonder about the future, guys, and I don't know how much you've talked about it. Attendance hasn't really picked up tremendously. the way I thought it would.
Well,
And I also-
Jerry,
They're averaging 17,000 people.
Jerry,
a little over 17,000.
they're gonna end up nearly doubling their attendance from last year, but that's a low bar. I mean,
Yeah, you
last
look
year
at
they
some
right,
of
did
the
that.
other
exactly.
teams. Look at some of the other teams around baseball not doing as well. I mean, even
Yeah.
a town like Cincinnati draws a whole lot more than
Yeah.
the Orioles do
Yeah.
on average. But the other aspect that no one seems to be talking about, except Mike Elias mentioned it, is the money, the finances. And I'm wondering, where is the money going to come from? Okay, they don't really have to go out and get a mega star next year, in my opinion. They need an arm, and to find a good pitching arm these days, the bidding starts at $10 million. You have the brothers fighting over the team. You have Masson still in that lawsuit hanging over their heads. And I wonder whether or not the finances are being held up in some aspect. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Will this team spend money to compete, or will they just try and blossom these guys? And they have a core for sure.
Remember one thing about the way they can also acquire pitching. They can go to a team that's been sort of disappointing and has a good pitcher and doesn't have a lot of prospects. And we can now bundle 2 or 3 prospects for an arm that's controllable and not out of the world expensive, you know.
That's true. It's not going to be the number one everyone's looking for, but you can't acquire a pitcher in that fashion. You're absolutely right, Stan. They've gone about it in that way, in the right fashion. But in terms of trying to compete with the American League East in terms of dollars, I don't even know if we're ever going to see that day unless a new owner comes along, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's my next question. What is the future in that standpoint of obviously they're having the Angelos family's having some problems with that type of thing. Where do you see this going?
I've heard of at least 2 different groups, 2 different billionaires. One I know by name that I'm not going to mention. The other I don't, but I know he's part of a group that has some very well-known names in Baltimore that would love to own this franchise, yet, they're not getting calls back. They're being backed by Major League Baseball in terms of their pursuit, but there isn't anything happening, no movement in that respect just yet. They're just waiting in the wings. So I just, I don't think anything is imminent, Ross, but I know there's some people out there that have some deep pockets that would be willing to step up and purchase this team if it were to go on the market.
Well, MLB would love to see Ripken involved.
Yes, they would.
Whatever way possible.
And usually they don't come out and publicly endorse. And I believe there was a quote from Rob Manfred recently. And I know Cal was at the All-Star game and it was a social call. Let's just put it that way.
Listen, Cal's a very wealthy guy compared to the 2 of us. But when you talk about the kind of finances needed to buy this team, I'm told by some insiders that this could be a $1.7 to $1.9 billion enterprise buying the Orioles.
And he doesn't have that. He would be part of the group and the face of the group.
Right.
I think every Oriole fan will be comfortable with that. Remember when there was talk about him wanting to be a manager or a GM? Those type of jobs, you're hired to be fired. And then you lose your relationship with the ball club. And that's the last thing the ball club needs right now.
Right.
You own the team, it's different.
Not to compare him as a player to Michael Jordan as a basketball player. How's that working out with the Charlotte Hornets with Michael Jordan running that team? Not very well. The fact that you were a good player doesn't necessarily translate. I was going to ask you though, Jerry, I know you're mostly plugged into the Baltimore market, but you worked a good bit of time over in DC as well. Are you hearing any rumors there? Because I've heard 10 or 12 entities are lining up to try and purchase that team. Most notably Ted Leonsis, who now owns that Comcast channel outright.
I've heard that as well. And that'll be an interesting sale because if they go before the Orioles, that's something the Orioles can use as leverage. They obviously don't own as much of Masson. And that's where the whole Masson mess really comes into play because you got 2 teams that conceivably could be sold and you don't know who owns what in terms of the TV package. And it's 2 totally different, I don't want to stick on the broadcast all the time. I'm sure you guys don't. But when you watch the broadcast, they're completely different in terms of presentation, reruns. I'm still not sure why Masson, when there's a rain delay, why would you show a vintage Orioles game in the upper left-hand corner and show me a tarp in the bottom right-hand corner? I know it's raining. Just put rain delay. That's all I need. I don't need to see a live shot of the tarp because you're dismissing what I'm seeing in the upper left-hand corner like
Right.
it's meaningless.
Right. I
But what are
agree
you
with
trying to tell me with that dual picture?
Don't you see when when one of the teams gets sold, probably the Nationals before the Orioles, because the learners are more motivated to sell right now. Don't you see the Masson thing resolving itself then with the Nationals no longer being part of Masson, but having their own TV package that they can sell outright and put it on Ted Leonsis' Comcast channel?
Sure. I
Yeah.
just don't know how the learners want to handle that in terms of residuals and all the stuff they feel like they're owed over the years.
Yeah.
They did sign this deal, though. The team did sign a deal with Peter Angelos when they decided to move to Baltimore. This is
I
this was
agree.
going to be the split, as they call it.
Yeah. Ross, question?
Jerry, Brandon Hyde. I mean, he's he's been with them from the beginning of this rebuild and what have you, and they've had a pretty good year this year. And some people have mentioned some things about manager of the year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's
and him being around when they start winning, which they are now. Kind of two things you wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think he's a manager of the year in that, that award typically goes to someone that's going to win the division or just have a remarkable turnaround and lead his team to the playoffs. Now, if they make the playoffs, different conversation. Right now, I don't foresee it. As far as him sticking around, I thought he was a placeholder at first, Ross. Now I'm getting the feeling more and more like he could be here for the long term.
Right.
He really knows these guys. They seem to play hard for him. You can see his confidence growing, just the way he handles the media and the press conferences. And again, I'm not there as much as Stan anymore, but just observing, you can see when a manager, sometimes if he doesn't know a reporter or whatever, he'll be short with that person as opposed to a beat person where he'll call that person by their name and give them a better answer. Back in the day, he would give everyone a long answer and treat everyone the same. So he's really grown into this job. You can see he's become a lot more comfortable in his own skin right now. And I think he obviously has the backing of Mike Elias. I don't know how much managing he's doing, though. It goes back.
No, exactly.
And I can't wait to read this Joe Madden book that's coming out because apparently he names a lot of names and it maybe burns a lot of bridges, which is fascinating to me, but he tells it like it is. And the fact that we all know that baseball, sometimes, you're just a puppet in the dugout and the strings are being pulled by someone in an office.
Right.
Well, that's the point of view Joe comes at this at. He says, hey, analytics have their place. I'm a believer in them. But he said all too often, you'd have the analytics people in the locker room, like with 7 pages of information for a player. And Joe Madden said, doesn't need a dissertation. He needs a couple nuggets of information.
I agree. I think Buck Showalter's getting that leeway in New York right now because I don't feel like he feels like he needs someone to tell him what to do from an office, a warehouse, or whatever. And I think the owner, Steve Cohen, is giving him the green light to manage the way he wants. But that's not the case around the major leagues, Ross, as you know.
Yeah. Well, you got one of the things with Madden and some of these other managers. You got a 23-year-old kid comes in there with all this information, and he's telling your stars what to do. And it goes, wait a minute. First of all, don't do that. And I went through this. The Giants come to Baltimore. I sat down and talked with a bunch of the coaches in the office about that thing, and they were getting there at 11:30 in the morning to break down all the stuff they were getting and what they could tell who. They had to break it down because they could only tell certain guys certain things because it was too much or not enough or whatever. So it's really. But I think what really fries people, even the baseball people, is you got young kids coming in there telling these veteran players how to do stuff, and go, wait a minute, let's cool your jets a little bit here, Doubleday.
Well, that's why, Ross. That's why a lot of times the analytics, when they really get a team that's deep into them, you'll find that they're younger teams because they want egoless players that they can pull the puppet strings on, rather than you can't be telling Vladimir Guerrero Jr. what to do because of analytics.
As it was told to me, can you imagine with one of these kids come in and told Ozzie Smith where to play, or
Right.
or Brooks Robinson, or Paul Blair, or you can name on and on. You can imagine, wait a minute, don't tell me what to do. I mean, a lot of this stuff doesn't even take into consideration who the pitcher is, what the guy's done before. There's just so many things that go into it that you just scratch your head. Just give me the basic stuff. I got it.
It's a lot easier to tell an Austin Hayes or Ryan Mountcastle or a Gunnar Henderson where to stand or where to be or what time to be there and all that, as opposed to some veteran.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, they should be telling them some things, and a lot of times they're not. You go to some of these minor league facilities, and these guys are making mistakes, and you see them in the big leagues making these same mistakes. Yeah. Nobody approaches them and tells them about you can't do that. You don't see it. I've had several scouts tell me this. It's not the player's fault that they're not learning how to play the game the correct way. It's not their fault. They're just not getting it from anybody that knows how to play. But basically, it's not everybody. That there are several, but it's not everybody. There are some good people still in the game trying to help.
Jerry, this past week we had those announcement of the 3 rule changes that are going to be implemented next year. The most notable one to me is the shift restriction, where you're going to have all 4 infielders. You have to have 2 infielders on the right of second base, 2 infielders on the left. So there can't be those extreme shifts. And then they all have to have at least their feet planted on the infield dirt. Your thoughts on that? You for it or against it?
I've always thought the shift is kind of just ridiculous. And I know it goes back a long way to the Ted Williams days, but the fact that a Major League Baseball hitter is not capable of beating the shift has always amazed me, because we all grew up watching guys like Rod Carew and Tony Gwynn, masters with the bat. They could place the ball wherever they needed despite the different pitches that were coming their way. And we just don't. To me, it's like, imagine a basketball team all having to play on the left-hand side of the court because, the strength of the team is they go left a lot, So we don't want to put anyone on the right-hand side of the court because everyone's a south. It's just absurd. And you'd be able to beat that by going right to the bucket and using your right hand. You would think that would occur in baseball. It hasn't. So I was never a big fan of the shift. I'm glad it's getting back to normal. The pitch clock to me, Stan, is the biggest thing because they do need to speed up the pace of the game. I know a lot of people feel like, hey, if you're there to enjoy the game, that's the way the game works. But you want to attract an audience. You want to keep up with football and basketball. You got to keep it moving these days. And I think that is vital. And it seemed to have worked at the minor league level.
Yeah.
All the results come back and say the games are shorter and more efficient.
Yeah.
I can't believe that teams haven't done that anyway, because it works to the pitcher's benefit. It keeps the defense on their toes, keeps the hitters defensive. And I just can't believe no one. I always look. You watch pitchers that take a lot of time. I see guys that don't know what they really want to do, and that just adds a lot of stuff into your mind that can throw you off. But pitchers that work quick, but most of the time that they're going to have pretty good success.
I think the thing that doesn't get talked about nearly enough right now, which they will go to once they refine it, is the electronic ball and strike umpire. And I think that's where you're going to see a tremendous reduction of time in the game. I think so much of it is the reaction of the player to a call he doesn't agree with. He steps out of the box and all that. If you don't have somebody to argue and bitch about a strike or a ball, you're going to move along much faster, I think. So
just hope the guys are able to throw the ball over the plate.
What about
that's going to be the problem?
What about the first batter that overreacts and just smashes that robot to death with his bat?
That's what you would be in favor of.
Right. What would the fine and punishment be for that?
That would be a good one. That would be a good one. Jerry, the other one was the last rule change was the making the bases bigger. Your thoughts on that? It seems like it's a combination of a safety factor, wanting there to be less first base collisions where somebody can misstep on the bag or step on somebody's foot. And also the length of time, even though it's just a millisecond, the length of time now to steal a base is going to be shorter because that base is closer to you by another couple inches.
That will make a difference. I think that's kind of an overreaction. I think that was unnecessary. The collisions at first base, I think, are a little bit, again, an overreaction. I don't think there's been an abundance. This game's been around for over 100+ years, relatively around with the same base sizes, I believe. I mean, we'd have to ask Ross's grandfather about that, but I don't think it's anything that was really necessary, Stan. Maybe it'll spice up the game and make for a little more action in terms of base.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. That's mostly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, add a little speed to the game.
I was amazed at that. I'm going almost 50 years in the game, and that was never. I never heard people go, "Oh gosh, we got to get there. There's too many collisions at first base." Granted,
it's not so much the collisions. You have a situation. It's really the material the bases were made out of is very slippery. And look what happened to Bryce Harper, who at the time, I think he was on the Nationals, but let's say it happened on the Phillies. They're paying him $30 million. And he slipped awkwardly on the base and ended up missing 3 or 4 weeks for that.
Stan, that could be easily remedied. I've seen more players slip at home plate and have ACL problems.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do that, fix home plate. Do something with that, because I've seen more injuries there on guys slipping on wet wet
home plate. Yeah.
But they're making it sound like that this happens every day, and it doesn't. Like I said, I've seen more things at home plate than first base, and that's just like a thing. And you get started on the Posey rule, which he hates. He don't call it that, is what he said. I don't, but that's another thing that's totally changed the game, and it made it. I don't know.
That's a common denominator there, Stan. Ross just mentioned it. Buster Posey, Bryce Harper. We're talking about superstars that get hurt.
Right.
If Ramon Arias, with all due respect to him, if that would have occurred, now we're not going to hear about it.
Well, we finally got to the DH universally when some very highly paid pitchers started pulling hamstrings while they were running to first base. Suddenly, it's not such a good idea to have your pitchers hit.
But Stan, that never happened. That rarely happened before.
It's always happened, Ross. It's just that they weren't making that much money. Back in 1974, when I bet on a game,
we never saw guys.
When I bet on a
that
game,
rarely happened.
I bet on a game with the St. Louis Cardinals, and their pitcher was pitching a 6-inning shutout, and he pulled a hamstring running to first base. It's been happening that long.
It doesn't happen that often. It really doesn't. And the reason it's happening more injuries now than ever before. That's because the pitchers don't do
they don't run as much.
They don't run as much. No,
I like the game the way it is now with the DH in both leagues. I like it.
I agree.
That's fine if they want it. I just know it's fun for pitchers to hit. A lot of them like it. But now in this day and age, none of them have ever hit before, so they don't know any difference.
As long as it cuts down on the obliques, Stan.
That's right.
God, don't say that.
Hey, before we let you out of here, give us your prediction how this postseason is going to roll around. Who's going to play? Who are the two teams in both leagues that will play to get into the World Series?
Well, for the longest time, it seemed like the Yankees, didn't it? And they have gone into a bit of a swoon compared to where they were earlier in the year, where it looked like they were just going to run away. So
64-28 to the All-Star game, 24-28 since.
Very pedestrian, and no one's crying here about that. I still think they're going to be formidable in the postseason, but the Astros are a team I think you have to look out for. And I'm still not discounting the Rays, the defending champs. I think those three teams will be in the mix, and I think one of those three will represent the American League in the World Series. And I just think it's the Dodgers to lose out there west in the National League. They've invested everything. The Padres have just completely flamed out. What a waste of money, a colossal waste of money.
Unbelievable.
Tatis has let down that franchise. So I think it's the Dodgers as a team to beat out West, and they're going to face one of those three teams. I think that's the way it's going to work out.
All right. He is Jerry Coleman, and he's got some news brewing, percolating.
Coming
let us-
soon.
You'll let
Coming
us know.
soon.
You'll let us know when it comes, and we will have you back on again. Okay.
Sounds good.
We're both
Dan,
friends.
I'll get it first down here because he's going to
All
come
right.
down here.
I
I'll get
know.
the info.
We're both friends. We're both friends of Jerry Coleman and fans, an important voice in the world of the Baltimore sports landscape, and has been for a long, long time. Jerry,
Thanks
best
for
of luck
having
to
me,
you.
guys.
All
Thanks,
right.
buddy. I'll
All
Hope
see
right,
you
you
take
like
care.
the
later.
background. It's a
It-
big
it's-
blur to me,
it was
just like
great.
the world.
It's on Apple TV that way.
That's the way it looks on Apple TV on my iPhone.
That's
All right.
it. That's
All right.
exactly it.
Commercial
Hey,
for Apple behind me. Yes.
All right. Hey, I just want to thank again the Costas Inn. They're with us every week on the Monday and Thursday podcasts, their Zooms. The Costas Inn again stepped up their curbside game. Go to CostasInn.com, order your food online, pay for it online, pick it up. Don't have to get out of the car. That's Costas Inn. For Jerry Coleman, Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan. I'll be back with Mr. Stein on Thursday when we'll talk some more sports.